Hello ladies and gentlemen, Panzer here, and today we're taking a look at Screencheat. Now Screencheat is a multiplayer first-person shooter with a twist. See, it brings back the old split-screen layout from those FPS games of the past, and features many different sort of game modes. Now in modern FPS games, the only time you'd really see split-screen multiplayer is on consoles. However, Screencheat brings us back to the online multiplayer and on PC. Now you might be wondering, okay, why is split screen, such a big deal, or why would they even include it at all? And the key is in the title. Screencheat is a game where players need to cheat in order to win. See, anyone who's ever played split screen FPSs in the past will have played with someone who inevitably will cheat. And that person, They seem to know where you are, where everybody else is, and it's all because they're just watching your screen. So Screencheat's developers, Samurai Punk, decided let's make an entire game based on that. So in Screencheat, all the other players are actually invisible, and the only way to find your enemies is to watch their screens. The players take on one of the 4 available colours, and the maps themselves are also coloured to help you cheat better. As an FPS, the game itself is fairly average. There's a good amount of weapons ranging from the default blunderbuss to crossbows, grenade launchers, and even a remote bomb in the shape of a teddy bear. Now, there are 5 different maps and 6 different game modes, as well as the options to randomize both each round. And the maps, while limited in number, vary greatly in layout and play style. Now, game modes are also nicely varied, with modes such as free-for-all deathmatch, domination style, and capture modes. There's also a mode called Murder Mystery, which is reminiscent of games like The Ship, where you have a specific target and a weapon to use in order to score points. Now, a mode that I found particularly interesting was called One Shot, where players only have a single shot to use, and they're unable to reload until all players have fired, or the timer ticks down to 0. Now, this can actually lead to some fairly tense moments, where you have to decide whether or not to conserve your shot, and possibly get you killed, or take the risk and fire first. However, while playing this game with others, we did encounter several issues, not least of which being issues with connectivity. Now, it could be argued that connectivity is the fault of the player, and that's true. However, it also became apparent that latency does affect the functionality in a very serious way. Now, the first thing you'd notice about lag in a traditional FPS is it affects your positioning and your shots, so things like hit registration and your actual positioning is going to be affected. But in this case, latency also affects the positioning on the screen, so the things that you're seeing are actually delayed beyond what the other person is actually seeing as well. So this can actually lead to a double disadvantage if the latency is above a certain amount. And in cases where you have 200 to 300 millisecond latency, this can become even worse. Additionally, modes like Murder Mystery are almost unplayable, as the lag can prevent you from picking up weapons, and thus prevent you from scoring points. Now, bearing in mind, without a time limit on this game mode, this can actually lead to a never-ending game, as players are not able to score the points necessary in order to reach the score limit and thus win the round. And this is of course because using the wrong weapon actually causes you to lose points, and this can go very far into the negatives. So, not being able to pick up the right weapon could actually lead you to not being able to complete the round at all. Also, despite the weapon variety, some of the maps actually render some of the weapons, such as the bear bomb or the grenade launcher, almost useless due to the impracticality of using them. For the bear bomb, of course, deploying it and then waiting to detonate it in the path of an unsuspecting enemy could actually be very difficult to do, as players could actually bypass the bomb and kill you before you have a chance to set it off. In other cases, weapons such as the grenade launcher require some time to explode, and of course bouncing it around corners is definitely an advantage. But in some maps that don't have very many tight enclosed corners, grenades then become a lot less effective. Now you could say, yes, let's adapt our playstyle to the actual map, and that's certainly true. However, we did eventually quickly find ourselves using the default blunderbuss, simply because it was easier to use and a lot more effective. And furthermore, the game doesn't give you any clear incentive to actually use any of the other weapons, so why not go with the easiest option? Now, the controls, as you might expect, are fairly standard for a first-person shooter, but they do feel rather imprecise to the point where it sometimes feels like you're playing in a permanent low-gravity state. Even running up a small slope on some of the maps sends you floating through the air. What's worse is in the menus. It's clear that the game was set up for use with a controller, and things like selecting a player slot in a lobby and then changing your player settings can be fiddly at best. So, is it any good? Well, Screencheat is an FPS with a unique twist that can definitely provide a couple of hours of entertainment with a few friends. However, it's extremely dependent on the screen cheating mechanic. Without this, it's a fairly lackluster FPS that's competent at best. The fiddly controls in the menus can get very frustrating, and without solid internet connectivity, the game can be confusing or nearly unplayable at times. Now, I can appreciate the concept and it's definitely interesting, but I recommend picking this up only for local co-op and definitely playing this with a controller. Your online multiplayer experience can definitely vary greatly, and it's doubtful as to whether the concept itself can allow for much replayability, since frankly there isn't much else to carry the game. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Panzer taking a look at Screencheat, now available on Steam for $14.99, or a 4-pack available for $45, or your regional equivalent currency. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.